Hello, everyone, and welcome to Workshop to Workflow, another webinar coming from Hyper Equity. We're really excited today for today's session because we're going to be talking not only about how to do this, but we are going to be doing a live workshop. So this is like where you get to actually get in and get your hands in it and get things done rather than just talking theory. So we've got some great panelists today. First of all, I want to introduce Dallin Johns, who is the CEO of HyperEquity and is sponsoring today's webinar. And the HyperEquity is really focused on helping organizations modernize the way they plan and manage compensation. And so especially merit cycles. So if you are in the compensation management, merit cycle management, please go check out hyperequity.com. But their mission is really simple. It's to replace administrative complexity with intelligent automation and replace subjective conversations with data-driven decisions. Today's webinar is going to be exactly that. And we are joined as well by Josh Lemon, who is going to be guiding this webinar today. I'm really excited to introduce Josh. He has a complete background in total rewards, a leader who builds the tools he wishes existed. I love that. Really, I think we all wish those tools were there. He's actually out doing it and going to show us all how we can do it as well. He's got a 20-year career leading global compensation and benefits. Most recently is the Senior Director of Global Total Rewards at a Fortune 500 company, and he's become known for a simple thesis. HR moves at the speed of dependencies, and AI allows practitioners to remove those dependencies by building their own tools. A new concept of being able to be an HR leader. As I always say, every job's a tech job anymore, isn't it? So we're all learning how to do this. So really excited to have you both here. I'm going to turn the time over because we want to spend most of the time today really digging in. So Dallin, I'm going to turn it over to you to get things launched off for everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Trina. Yeah, it's an honor to host Josh today and sponsor Josh. He and I met, what was it now, Josh? Maybe a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. And I've learned in that short time that Josh is a true master of his craft. And that is not just total rewards, that he has, like Trina said, developed a technical skill set that I'm envious of and excited to learn from today. I like that HR is becoming more and more of a technical field, in addition to being a marketing field, a sales field, a finance field. We're everything. We're a business within a business. And Josh, I appreciate you joining us today. I look forward to learning about how to ease my pain when it comes to job descriptions. That has been the bane of my existence in all things total rewards and compensation. So I look forward to this. Take it away, Josh. I look forward to learning from you.
Well, thanks for having me, Dallin, and what a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate the accolades and everything like that, but one of the things that gets me even more excited than getting my ego stroked is actually showing people how to do this and seeing them actually take off and start doing these things, which I love, and I can't wait to see all of you exploring this as a new part of what you get to do as a part of your career, should you choose to accept the mission, right? And we're going to dive right in. Now, I generally don't like to get too deep into slides, but there are some things that I want to share with people with some slides today before we get into demoing. But I promise that this will not be the bulk of what we're doing today. We're going to go ahead and make sure that you have some background to be able to jump in, and we're gonna build something live, which is really cool. If you've joined me in previous webinars or workshops, this might be somewhat familiar for you, but practice makes perfect, as they say. So even if you've joined me on a webinar or live in a workshop where we've covered this before, I encourage you to stick around with us. We're going to do this. You get to see it again. And if you haven't, this will be exciting and new. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about what it is that we're doing. And we are going to build a job description cleaner and a leveling alignment tool. What do I mean by that? So within our companies, we have our own job architecture, our families, and the leveling that we put aligned to the roles to make sure that we're appropriately pricing them and everything. That's one of the biggest pain points that possibly could be created within the total reward space is misleveled jobs, right? So how do we end up creating something that helps us do this a little bit more effectively, a little bit more consistently? We're going to build a tool that will help with that. This is one of about 20 different tools that I feel that you can build yourself, and I'm writing a book about that. So if you want to join the waitlist for my book, it's over halfway done. So, making good progress on it. You can actually scan the QR code and sign up on the waitlist there at joshlemonai.com. And you'll even get chapter 1 of the book emailed to you when you sign up for the waitlist. It's going to be basically a deeper dive into what we're building today. So it'll be a more comprehensive chapter that talks about building this within an organization and building it in a more robust way so that you can actually use this within your company. What we're going to be doing today is more of a proof of concept, MVP style sort of approach, but you can actually get this prompt and get yourself even further down the path with the chapter and the prompt that comes along with that. All right, so let's talk about what it is that we're going to be doing. We are going to help ourselves maintain a library of job descriptions that are well put together, that follow what we define as best practice when we end up putting together a job description. And we're going to make sure that when we get the messy job descriptions from managers or different people in the organization that really have intentions but maybe haven't followed what we consider to be those best practices, we can get it from wherever they have it to where we need it to be able to appropriately level it and have an intelligent conversation about the correct placement within our job architecture for this role. So that's what we're going to be doing today. What we need in advance is we need 3 things. We need some job family descriptions. So we need to be able to know what the different types of work is that we have within our organization. It's interesting, if you think about this visually, I think of one axis, if you're thinking about this like on a graph or something like that, you're trying to pinpoint something. The job family descriptions tell us what a job is doing. And then the job level descriptions tell us at what level that work is being done. At the intersection of those 2 things, the level of the work that's being done and the type of work that's being done, we have a job, right? So we need those 2 things to be able to help us identify where we're going to place this job within our job architecture. And then we also need to give the AI an example of what good looks like. So we'll need an example job description. This will be really helpful as we pull this together. The workflow that we're going to use is we're going to start within a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever it is that you're using, Gemini, and we're going to start there describing what we're trying to solve for. With that, we're actually going to ask for 2 things. We're going to ask for a product requirement document and a lovable prompt. Now, lovable is what I'm choosing to use to build this application, but there are other types of applications that are out there that can do this too. So if you prefer to use something like Cursor, Windsurf, Base44, Google Anti-Gravity, or even like Versal or Claude Code or something like that, you can do this in another application. But let me tell you why I like using Lovable, because I think this is pretty important. Lovable actually simplifies a lot of what we need to do to have a true application. So when we are building an application, you might hear the term full stack application used. And that just means that you have an interface layer called a front end, and then you have something that does a lot of the heavy lifting or the work. A lot of times this is where things that could be basically identified to make things specific to you via authentication and role level security and everything like that is basically is in the back end. It's also where we can store information that we might want to recall or edit or modify a little bit later. So think about things in terms of a full stack application, and I'm greatly simplifying that. So if there's anybody that does any sort of development work or works in IT and you're cringing right now, please just know that I've taken this and simplified it for the total rewards space. And I understand that this is not a full description of what full stack applications are, or what is done on a back end. But I like Lovable because it manages a lot of that for us. So we're going to use Lovable for the build today. Once we have the prompt that we want to use, we're going to actually go into Lovable and build the application. Now, there's actually two ways that we can do this, and I'm going to end up letting you in on a little secret in how I like to do this. So Claude developed something called Multi-Context Protocol, or MCP, and it basically allows AI to talk with other systems that might be sort of AI native. So when you are using Claude, and you can actually do this in ChatGPT as well, they've adopted the MCP for Claude. So you might be able to do this with other large language models besides just Claude and ChatGPT. But if you're using one of these platforms, you can do the first step that I talked about, leveraging your subscription that you already have with Claude or your large language model to basically do a lot of the pre-work. And then you can use the MCP to basically have your AI chain with the Lovable application to be able to direct the build, which might make it a lot more efficient than you doing it yourself. You'll also get the benefit of some kind of checks and verifications that happen when you do have the AI building that are kind of nice to have. Then the third step is, once you have initiated the build, very few applications that I build are kind of one-shot builds. So the third step is iterate on the Lovable project until you've achieved what you really want to achieve, whether that's inclusive of workflow, whether that has all of the different sort of authentication capabilities. You might want to implement this with single sign-on within your organization, and there are going to be a couple of steps that you could do that. But then you can deploy the project safely and effectively the way that you want to. Today, we're going to end up, like I said, creating more of an MVP style product so that we can end up showing you what's possible. We're not going to do all of the steps, but you can definitely do more with this than what we're going to be taking it through today. All right. So first thing that I want to do, and this is kind of an extra, but I want to show you how to connect via an MCP. So if you want to do this, there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to share my screen here. Actually, if we could go to, Trina, yes, the Claude.
While that's coming up, I want to remind the viewers that if they have any questions, comments, they can use the comments and tab in your tool and submit them there. And I will try to pass them along to Josh as they come up.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. So if you want to connect to the Lovable MCP, first of all, you do have to have a Lovable account. So if you haven't set up a Lovable account, just go to lovable.com. It actually used to be lovable.dev, and I think they've recently purchased the lovable.com website. So if you go to lovable.com and you don't get it, you might need to still go to lovable.dev. Mine still says .dev when I go there, but if I go to lovable.com, it actually forwards me to the lovable.dev website. So I believe you should be fine whether you go to lovable.com or lovable.dev and you set up your account there. You can do it tied to your Google account, which just makes sign up really easy and quick. If you do want to sign up with email, though, it might take you a couple more steps to get that set up. Once you do have that set up, you can come into Claude and go over here on the left-hand side where it says Customize. If you click on Customize, you have a couple of different things in here. You can click on connectors. And then if you click on browse, you can search the directory of connectors. Now Lovable has already got an easy one-click connector ready to go. So you just search for Lovable and you can activate Lovable right within Claude, and that will make it so that you can use that MCP, which means the two applications will be able to talk to each other. In ChatGPT, the way I set this up is I just said, hey, ChatGPT, can you connect to Lovable via the MCP? And it said, yep, I can. And it just took me through it. So you could probably also do this just by doing it in a chat window. You don't need to necessarily go through this. The large language models are making this easier every day. So once you have that, we'll go back to the presentation. Let me just...
Trina, can you drop him back into the presentation?
Thanks.
Perfect.
We're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, a couple other things that I wanted to say. You know, all these different things use tokens or credits or, you know, some form of internal currency that they're basically defining for how you're utilizing their platforms. The reason why I like to use the MCP is it is credit friendly with Lovable. So you can end up, like I think I mentioned this earlier, but letting the large language model do a lot of the pre-work before sending it over to Lovable for development. And you can also use context that you have outside of the given project to basically help you do some things. There's some skills in Lovable that might, or sorry, some skills in Claude or, you know, in your other large language models that you might have some memories, you know, through your interactions and everything like that, that can be useful. And Lovable does a good job, but if you're using that within the large language model that you use a lot, you might actually be able to gain some leverage that you don't have just by what you're using in Lovable to access this. So another perk of using something outside of Lovable and then chaining these applications together via the MCP. All right, so what I have next is an example prompt. And this prompt actually goes across a couple of slides because I wanted it to be legible, but I have a description of what it is that I want to build. Now I could just take this and go straight into Lovable with it and say, hey, I want to build this application and, you know, have this conversation here. But by starting with my large language model, I can give some additional context to say, hey, I would like to build an application using Lovable and Lovable Cloud doing the following, right? I want it to, you know, this application to clean up my job descriptions, and I can provide an example of what I think it looks like. It can take and use that to help me build some requirements. I can even give some examples of the tables that I'm using. You see that in the prompt here in the first column, I've got a description of these tables, but I can go ahead and load those as attachments. I can talk about different phases that I want to use for the application. You know, I want to have a cleaning phase where if the manager that I'm working with provides something that was kind of messy and doesn't really well align, I want it to basically take a look at what we've got in terms of an architecture, family, and level fit, and return between 3 and 5 stacked ranked what it thinks are the best suited jobs, and then I can help refine it from there. So this is where I've got a human in the loop, somebody exercising some expertise, maybe looking at this, having had a conversation with a manager to really try to gauge intent, and then I can end up working with the content that comes up based on some recommendations. Additionally, I want this application to be able to save the job descriptions once I have cleaned them up, right? It would be really helpful if in the future I don't have to go through this exercise again when I'm trying to backfill the same position. So having a library of job descriptions that I can go back to is going to be really important. So I have some information about saving, reviewing, and scope, and then I'm going to stop there. Now, course, this is a demonstration, so I've got a couple of things that I've already identified are not in the original prompt that I'm going to probably take you through and we're going to build on. And then I've also got some ideas on where to go next. I'm going to keep this deliberately sort of narrow in scope so that we can do this, and we're going to get started with these pieces. Now, I'm going to go back to my, if Trina, we can go back to the screen share.
Hey, while that's coming up, Josh, a question came in from Kelly. From a corporate enterprise perspective, our company has endorsed Copilot, which Lovable does not work with. What would be a comparable app to use? App Builder, she asked.
So Microsoft has a Power Applications a Power Applications thing. It's part of like their Power BI, Power, suite. So I would actually recommend that. I don't know if App Builder might be a rebranding of that. Maybe that's what it's called now. If so, then yes, the Microsoft Office suite does have a vibe coding application. And if I got it wrong, I apologize, Kelly. But there is something.
Kelly, I can do some further research and get back to you after the webinar is done. Yep.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take the parts of the prompt, and if you want to, get this presentation or any of the resources that we're going through, you just go to that link that Trina dropped into the comments, and you can visit this speaker page for today's workshop, and you can actually download the slides that I'm sharing as well as the resources. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste the different parts of the prompt that you see in the slides in here. I'm just going to go ahead and pop this in here. I'm not going to worry too terribly much about the formatting. I know this isn't really that clean, but by the time I add in the other documents, it's going to help round things out. So I'm going to do this. I am going to say, I'm just going to leave it at this. This prompt doesn't actually make any reference to any MCPs or anything like that. I'm also not using the heaviest model from Claude here. I'm actually using Sonnet 5 on a medium effort. You can boost this up if you want to have a little bit more of the top models working on this type of assignment. I'll be honest, I haven't ever done this with the Sonnet 5 medium, so we might be in for a little bit of a surprise if this doesn't do what we want it to do, but I think we should be fine. I'm also going to take the files that I want to use to train the AI and what it is that we're trying to accomplish, both from a example of what these tables look like that we're trying to populate, as well as the example of what a good job description looks like. Now, these are also resources that are, again, on that link. So I'm going to grab those, an example job description, and then the 2 Excel documents for job family descriptions and the job leveling guide. They're all going to be in here. So I've given it the context. It's a little bit of a messy prompt because it's just kind of a copy text stream off of the PDF document, but I'm pretty confident that the AI will actually still be able to work with this anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and send that, and we're going to see what it does. Now, as a part of this prompt, I did ask for a product requirement document. I don't recall if I actually asked it directly for the prompt, but it should build this out for me. And whether or not it actually builds the prompt or just builds the product requirement document, I should be able to work with what it comes back with. In the meantime, if there are questions that you have that are burning, please put them in the comments and we'll answer them. We do have to wait just a second as it builds. So this is a good opportunity if you have any questions up to this point to be able to ask.
Josh, maybe this is a good opportunity for me to ask one of my questions that I had coming into this. So first of all, you brought up Sonnet 5.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good enough for this? You said you've never actually used that level. Is that because you've used a higher level, a lower level? What have you done in the past? And
Well, so let me talk about sort of best practice here, right? These models are fairly capable, but you know, if you're working on something that's important to you, if you're like me, you want to use the best models. So when I've done this in the past, I've typically gone to the higher end of the models and I've started there. But if you want to actually be efficient about your token usage, I mean, even Claude has restrictions on a pro account on how you can use it and how much you can use before you get locked out for a period of time. You can actually do two things, I guess. One, you can use a lower level model. That's the easy route. Second is your most important prompts are usually your initial prompts, and then you can switch the model. So if I really wanted to do this in a way that leveraged the best model when it was most important and then switch to a more efficient usage of the model as I go through the building, what I could do, and is an approach that I take quite often, is I can start with something that uses a higher level model rather than starting with Sonnet 5 at the beginning. I could actually go with, you know, Opus 5, which doesn't require any usage credits. It just is, you know, their top model outside of Fable 5. But start with that, maybe get one or two prompts in, get the initial reaction from the model and everything like that, and then switch to Sonnet 5 for the remaining conversations. It's a great way to be efficient with the usage. Okay, now we actually have a product requirement document, a PRD, for version 0.1, right? I like how it's named this. It talks about what it is that we want it to do. It's going to clean and align, turning messy, unstructured job description into a clean best practice job description. That's what I want. Maintains 2 reference table. Yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a job families and a leveling guide table. When the user submits a raw description, the AI recommends the best fitting placement, lets the user confirm one, and then writes the job description into the standard format ready to save and export. That's exactly what I want. So it's got some goals here. I like that it's got the stacked ranked list of 3 to 5 jobs. It's got some things that are outside of the scope. So specifically, we're not requiring authentication at this point. There's no workflow or approval routing. There's no integration with HRIS systems and no bulk import of job descriptions. Now, all of these things that are specifically designed out of scope could be iterations on the application that we build. So just because they're not goals for the version 0.1 doesn't mean they can't be eventual you know, build outs of this application going forward. Who's using it? I think this is a really important thing to kind of identify the audience. It's going to have 3 tables. It'll have a job families table maintained by us, a leveling guide table maintained by us, and then it will also have a job descriptions table that's created by the application. This is great. It's going to have some things that we are able to maintain a database then of our job descriptions kind of through this application that we're building. Talks about how the workflow will work, how the user can view or maintain rows here. It does talk about a CSV import for both tables, which is funny because that's not part of the requirement that I put in here. And if you're reading through the slides, it was one of the things that I said it could iterate on. However, I did put this in a project where I do work with a lot of different applications. So it's possible that this, you know, Claude project just knows me well enough to say, hey, this is the type of thing that Josh likes to have. So, but if you don't have that, you can either work it in there or not. Bottom line is I can end up kind of going through this and, you know, spending a little bit more time with you all on this, but I want to get to building. So I'm going to shortcut this step but I would recommend that you do not shortcut this when you're building something for your own organizations. Take time, read through it, say, can I work with this? Is this a good MVP to demonstrate what's possible? Can I end up iterating off of this as a launching point once I end up establishing this as a great base for the application that I'm building? If the answer to that is yes, I'd say work with it. If the answer to that is no, I would say continue to iterate with it. It's actually given me a prompt. I didn't ask for this either, or at least I don't know, maybe I did ask for this, but it's got the prompt in here, and it's got it in another window that I can just click copy, and I can take it into Lovable and I can kick it off. Now I'm actually going to do that. I do have it connected via the MCP, so I could ask Lovable to, or I could ask Claude to build in my Lovable workspace directly, but I'm going to go ahead and just take this prompt over to Lovable here, and I'm just going to pop it in, and I'm going to make sure that I'm on build, and I'm going to kick off the project. Now, Lovable is going to get working on this, and it's going to build based on the full prompt that I just uploaded. If you see here, I've got it kind of truncated here, but I can expand this. This is the full prompt that it gave me. It's actually not super comprehensive, but it does have the information that I need in order to be able to get things set up appropriately from a back end standpoint with the tables and everything like that. So this is probably plenty for it to get working off of this without taking forever to do the initial build out. Once I end up having this kick off the project and it has this set up and everything like that, I can more specifically tell my Claude project to attach to this specific Lovable project in my workspace. Right? If I'm confusing anybody with like how I've kind of framed up these sentences, please let me know and I'll do a better job clarifying. But we're going to let it initiate this. This might take a minute or two. As soon as we see a preview here in this window, we'll know that we're getting somewhere with this. But in the meantime, this is another good spot to pause and get any questions that somebody might have.
I see that we're building this. I'll just ask. I haven't seen a question come in, but if you have any, please submit them. But in the meantime, I will ask one of my questions. So as you're building this in Lovable, and the idea is that others would be able to access it, right? Like I saw on your users, it said total rewards professionals would be the users of this tool. How do they access it? I mean, maybe that's coming, but
no, that's a great question. So right now we've set this up to be an internal to the team tool, but it doesn't have to be. One of the great things of building a full stack application is you can do defined roles within your application, and then you can require authentication and assign people to those roles. Let's see how much time we have. This is going pretty quick, so who knows? Maybe we can end up even putting something together where we'll actually put this behind an authentication layer and set up some roles. But one of the things that is a great use case for this is you can end up giving your HR business partners or your talent acquisition team access to this, and they can have different access levels than what you have. Maybe you have an HR business partner that supports the marketing and the finance organization, and so you want to give them access to those roles. Or maybe you want to make it so that they can use this to search for job descriptions, but not finalize any job descriptions, adding them to the database, right? Depending on how you want to set this up, you can make it so that there are different sort of levels of interaction that are possible with the different types of user roles that you have for your application, which is really cool. I see another question has come in. What's the purpose of attaching the Claude project to the Lovable project? So I'm not fully utilizing this right now, but the purpose of attaching this is, and you'll see this in a second because I will chain these together a little bit more intentionally here once we get the project spun up in Lovable is you can actually let Claude do a lot of the thinking, so you can be more efficient with your credits on Lovable. The other thing is Claude is a lot better of a developer than I am. So if I talk about some things and Claude and Lovable can, go back and forth with conversations about what really needs to happen, I can end up telling Claude what I want to do, and I can leverage skills that I have put together in Claude to be able to help me do things like, let's say I want to use the front end design skill that Claude has because I really like the way that it changes the interfaces and everything like that. I can end up leveraging that Claude skill and tell it to work with the Lovable project to do that. So there's a number of different reasons why I feel like it's a good idea to connect your large language model and your building application. Looks like it's still working. Thank you for the question, by the way.
It sounds to me, Josh, like if in the end you feel more comfortable just doing it all in one application, that being Lovable, you actually could. You could do that if you wanted to.
And in fact, a lot of the builds before, well, I can't remember exactly when I switched to connecting these, but a lot of the builds that I did, probably, a dozen or more builds that I made, I did not have them connected via Claude project, and I just built them straight in Lovable. Oftentimes, one of the really cool things, you see that this has a build and a plan mode. If you want to, you can actually leverage Lovable like a large language model and have a discussion about things before you kick off the build, and that will help in iterating on things before you're committing them. There's also, and it's not something that you can see yet because it's still spinning up the project, but there's also a way for you to get things to a certain stage. And if you don't like what you've done with an iteration, you can roll things back to a previous iteration. So there's a lot of really great things in Lovable as in and of itself. You can access all of those features via Claude with Lovable, but I find myself sometimes going back and forth too.
Mm-hmm. So Josh, obviously this tool is going to result in loading job descriptions into the tool. It's going to clean it up. It's going to do some leveling things. But what would you say to the organizations that are concerned about data security, safety, uploading company information into a tool like this? What would you say to them?
It's a great concern, and I'm going to share primarily from my experience, how, those concerns were discussed, and, what basically led to me deciding that this was the right model to use and to showcase and to tell people about as we're using it, because it's not by mistake. I mean, I've vetted this pretty fully with a corporate team that did, thorough evaluation. So the Fortune 500 company that I worked for had a rigorous process of vetting generative AI tools. And there were a couple of different ways that these tools got evaluated through cybersecurity and through legal. And the biggest concern from cybersecurity and legal was, how is the information that we're using going to be treated in terms of training the models? So one of the reasons why I like the tools that I'm sharing with you today with Claude and Lovable is because with the business accounts or the enterprise accounts, so you've got a couple of different levels of accounts that you can use within Lovable, you can actually turn off training on your data, which is really important for a lot of corporate governance sort of concerns. The other thing is, and I will just say this as a more general sort of statement, when using any of the information that you are, whenever you're exploring a new generative AI tool, is the transparency around privacy and security needs to be something that you can really get familiar with. So both Claude and Lovable are very transparent. They have a lot of security first, privacy first policies, and you can easily find those policies in a very robust way, publicly available on the internet, to be able to say, okay, how do they end up treating privacy? How do they treat security? I'm not going to do it justice because I'm not the cybersecurity or the legal reviewer that went through the process of evaluating these tools, but I can tell you that in addition to the privacy and security for the applications that you're using to build it, it's also important to have that same level of rigor in any of the tools that you build. So for me and my team, when I was working within that corporate environment, we not only had to get the generative AI tools approved to build with them, but any of the applications that we built needed to go through rigorous penetration testing to make sure that the applications themselves were secure. And I will say our applications ended up meeting the standards that were set by our cybersecurity team for the security that needed to be set up for these applications. That included single sign-on in our case, and it also included a lot of sort of robust code evaluation, where we ended up taking the code base and uploading it to a company GitHub repository where the code could be scanned for vulnerabilities. And so in addition, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling here a little bit, but it's still working. So we're gonna let it keep more working and I'll keep on talking. The projects that you build in Lovable also have a project-based trust center. So any of the applications that you build will have a transparent page that will allow you to end up demonstrating to any of your partners in IT the security that is available and implemented for your applications. So, all right, we've got something spun up here. So, which is good timing because I'm pretty much out of what I was talking about in that vein. But I'm going to show you one thing. Before you publish over here on the right, you'll usually see something like this, run a security scan. Now, what we're building here isn't meant to be very secure, right? We didn't put in authentication. We didn't have that. But when you do have an application that's ready to deploy, it's something where you can end up, before you end up publishing it, before you end up deploying it, you can go through and do a very rigorous security scan. Of course, it's finding critical issues right now because I haven't set up anything to even protect any of this over any, even just an entry-level sort of authentication over email. But that's okay, because this is a publicly available demonstration. So I've got something called Job Description Cleaner and Level Alignment, a Total Rewards internal tool. That might change as we end up, evolving this and everything like that. It's got the cleaner right here, the ability to upload, paste information or upload a document or PDF, and I can analyze it. I've got up here save job descriptions area. So any of the job descriptions that I create, I'll have the ability to go back and reference. And then I've got reference data, which will give me the ability to input my job families and my leveling guide. I don't even have seeded data in here at this point. It's just empty. If I want to further take a look into this, there is a way to take a peek at the back end. I just come over here to more, look at the cloud. I can look at the underlying database and I can see these tables and how they're set up. I can look at the job description table, for example, and see that I've got all these different fields. I can compare that with what it had originally given me in the product requirement document to see, does this look like everything was captured? I can look at the job families table and say, does this have everything that I need in order to be able to upload my job families? It's got an ID. This is going to be a field that it creates, the job family code name and description. I created that field, also something that it's maintaining for me. But I'm going to go ahead and just jump into it and start loading stuff into this. So I'm going to import this as a CSV file. And I'm going to go to, let's see here, this was the job families table. So I'm going to put in my job family descriptions in here. I'm going to match the fields from my table into the ones that are identified here. It's pre-selected job family code, all with these underscores matching to the job family code field, job family name, job family description. That all looks right to me, so I'm just going to import it. And then I'm going to go to the leveling guide, and I'm going to do an import for this. If yours didn't have this, if you're building along or you know, you're saving this for later and you come back and you're building this, if yours didn't have this, this is one of the areas where you can iterate. So like I've got, you know, a management career stream, a professional career stream, support career stream. I've got the different levels. I've got the career stream description, the job level description. This is really cool. I can upload the files via CSV. I can edit them manually. I could delete or modify something in here. One of the things that I don't have, and this is where we're going to be able to start iterating, is I don't have a template that I can download. So I might want to say, hey, you know, on the job families and job leveling guide, in addition to the import CSV, add a button that allows me to download a template. Now I can do this right here. This is a pretty simple edit, so I might do it here. I can actually connect it via my Claude project as well. So maybe because I have this stuff in here and I've got some other things that I might want to reference outside of Lovable, I'm going to make sure and just say connect to the Job Aligner project in the Joshua's Lovable workspace via the Lovable MCP. So I'm telling it specifically where to find this project, the Job Aligner project, and to connect to it. I didn't tell it to actually take any actions or do anything, but the reason why I do it, I just want to make sure that it has no problem connecting to it. It says it found it. There are some similar projects in my workspace. Not a surprise because I've built this a number of times. So, but it says JD Aligner is the closest match. It was created today. This is the one that I wanted to use. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say add a download template button to the references next to the import CSV file buttons. Also review the project against the original PRD and let me know if you see any gaps. I'm going to do that, just going to have it kind of work through, look at my project. It's going to take like a more professional look at that, right? Because Claude is a good coder, but I'm not necessarily a good coder. So it's going to go through and take a look at what we've built here. While it's doing that, I'm going to get prepared to do some testing of this. So I'm going to go out to LinkedIn and I'm going to look for a job posting for something that I feel like I can test with this application. So I'm going to look for an HR business partner role. We're going to pretend that whatever job description I find is actually a job description that a manager has handed to us. So here's one for Xcel Energy. They have an HR business partner role. Let's say I have a comparable role within my organization and I want to find out, you know, if a manager handed me this job description, where it would fit in our architecture. So I'm going to take the, you know, advertising fluff out of this, and I'm really going to stick to things like the position summary, the essential responsibilities and requirements. And I'm just going to grab the summary, responsibilities, minimum and preferred requirements. This is all I'm going to grab, right? Now, one of the things that I didn't pull up, but I can, actually I might need to put this on the stage. Let's see if I can do this. Present my computer, upload a file. I'm going to do this example job description. Trina, once that pops up, could you put that on the stage? All right, so I've got an example job description here. Let's just say that within my organization, this is what I want all my job descriptions to look like, right? So managers handed me this. I'm grabbing this off of LinkedIn, but managers handed me whatever it is that I have, and I'm going to be working from that. But let's say I want to have some information about the job that's really kind of more from a HR systems standpoint, right? That's that top information. I want all of my jobs to have a job summary. I want all of them to indicate the key responsibilities. I want all of them to show the required qualifications and the preferred qualifications. I want all of them to have a success profile. I want all of them to show core competencies and physical and work environment. Let's say that's my standard, right? So this is what I want all of my job descriptions to have. Now I'm going to go back to the application that I built. So let's go back to sharing the browser-based stuff. And we're going to do a test using what the manager handed us. So the manager handed us this. I'm copying it, and I'm just going to paste it in. Whether a manager handed this to me in a document or whether a manager handed this to me in an email, I can take and pop this in here, or I could upload it, and I can click Analyze. Now, we haven't tested this, so hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, it gives us an opportunity to test iterating. If it does work, then it shows kind of the capabilities of what we've built based on the specs that we have provided earlier. Okay, so it's taken the job description, and now it said, okay, we've got a couple of potential options. It's saying the top ranked one is an HR business partner, career stream professional, level 3. It gives me a little bit of why. This one seems like it could be a good fit. But let's say I was having a conversation with the manager, and I understand that, yeah, they went through and they modified this, and they said, 4 years of experience, but they basically took the job description that they knew that they had, and they just knew that they needed a little bit lower level position than some of the other ones that they had. So it's really more probably an intermediate level role, a professional 2. I could end up saying, okay, I understand why, because of, the manager taking all this stuff and just using, the information that they had. They modified the years of experience. They're really going for this. I'm going to leverage my own leveling guide and job architecture information to clean this up so that it better aligns to this intermediate level role, and I can use this placement. So I'm going to do that. It is going to leverage this. Oh, it's interesting that it's all putting it in line like this. Sometimes, the way that this works is different, the different ways that this gets pulled together. And so now inline on the same thing, it's giving me a review and edit. So now it's giving me some information that I can modify and some things that I can't. The job code is going to be fixed based on, what rules it has, built into the system. It's got the family defined and career stream and everything like that based on what I selected. It's got information about the title and the summary. And then it's given me a whole bunch of different things that I can modify. Let's see, I can't reorder these, but I could end up, using that as an iteration item. But I could add items or I could modify things, right? So I've got the different sections: key responsibilities, required qualifications, preferred qualifications, success profile and competencies, physical and work environment. All of the stuff that I wanted in my job description is represented here, which is really good. But maybe there are some other things that I want to modify. I'm going to go ahead and say, this is perfect. I didn't have to change anything. If I wanted to, I could modify stuff. You can see that the minimum of 4 years and the 2 years, this is pulling from the other stuff. I didn't actually look to see how it ended up interpreting the leveling information and modifying the job description. But I know that it did because there were definitely not these different sections, but it took the information the manager provided and it should have modified things as well for the leveling description that I have. That's the instructions that it was provided. So I'm going to go ahead and save the job description. And when I do, I now can export this in Word or PDF. That's awesome. So if I wanted to, I can export this as a PDF. I don't know if this will open. Okay, good. It does open in my browser window. Doesn't look like it rendered. Oh, okay. Never mind. It just took a second to load. So it's got this all laid out so that I can work with this. And now if I want to, I can send this back to the manager to say, hey, I've taken the information that you provided, look at this against my leveling guide, and modified what you provided so that it matches our best practices and job descriptions. So this is something that makes this a really great tool for our use. I noticed that we're getting close to the end of time, so I don't know that we're going to be able to do things like add authentication and everything like that. If I take a quick back look at Claude, it's given me a little bit of a review of my application, and it's also given me some things that are, maybe some gaps that I want to take a look at. I can also then, take it to the next step. If I say, hey, now I want to actually make this available to people outside of Total Rewards and I want to add authentication layer, I could do that. And I could start working with Claude to do some of those more involved sort of next steps. So
this is cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have any questions from everybody who is on the call? Really appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions coming in, but if you have any, please add them on.
Yeah, I do want to go back to a prior question that came in earlier. Let me show Kelly's question. When we're talking about corporate enterprise and what tools, and where I work in data governance and compliance, this is a big area. When we talk about AI tool usage, what has your organization approved as your AI tools, right? And I know a lot of organizations, in order to keep controls in place from a compliance perspective, will mandate certain tool sets and tech stacks. So Microsoft's a very common one. And so going back to answer that question, you can still do the work that is needed. Copilot is your natural language chat, right? It's not going to be able to build the apps or go to the level that Lovable is. But if your organization has approved that tech stack, Power Apps for sure would be one that you would be looking at, depending on what you want to do and how extensive you want to get with the platform. You can use things like Power Automate, and then adding in that authentication layer through Entra. It just depends on your organization. So really work with your tech teams at your organization to identify what are the approved governance AI tech stack approved for you to develop this, and then get familiar with those tools. But they're, depending on your organization, it might be different for every organization. But I think I'm glad the data and compliance piece of this came up from a PII perspective and things like that. Those definitely need to be considered when you're building these apps out. So wanted to make sure we went back and addressed that one.
Yeah,
thank you. Well, we're at the close, but Josh, this was wonderful. If other viewers are like I am right now, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here's what I can do. I could take this and build that and all sorts of things. If you're wondering what problems you can solve on your own, think through what pain points are you experiencing today and go for it. That's the way I'm feeling. Well, thank you. HyperEquity is here to help you. We're on the verge of merit season coming up, and this is time to start actually thinking about your merit cycle and how to manage the upcoming cycle. HyperEquity is here for you. Book a demo, go to hyperequity.com. We can help you with that. I think our next webinar is going to be all about preparing for the upcoming merit cycle. So watch for that. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if anybody wants to continue the chat. I'd love to talk. Cool.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been a wonderful session. Thank you so much, Josh, and we'll see you soon, Dallin. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.